You well, Mark?
Not bad.
I've just heard you on the phone trying to arrange new insurance for your new house.
Oh God, yeah. Honestly, I used to live in China and Brussels, two places known for their bureaucracy. Then I came to America. This is one bureaucratic nation, and that's what Donald Trump is trying to remove, or more like Elon Musk.
Yeah, it was a line, so that's going to cost me twice as much as I'm paying now. Forget it. Hello and welcome to day 4 of Trump 100 with me, James Matthews.
And me, Mark Stone.
It's Wednesday afternoon here in Washington, D.C., where it's minus 13 degrees. I am extremely glad to be inside, not outside Washington jail, waiting for Jan Sixers to come back out. Back inside, face unfrozen, Mark.
Yeah, it's been an interesting day. It's been one of those days where things have been just a tiny bit slower, which has been useful. I think probably in the White House, they've now got their feet under the desks and they're trying to work out what's happening, get their computers plugged in, get the emails going, and it's allowed us just a tiny bit of space to be able to regroup after a heady few days. Martha is not with us today, so we thought it would be a good day to do something that we're going to do sporadically through the course of this podcast and bring in one of our American friends. Some of these folk are people who we have met over the course of the election campaign, people who we spoke to who had fascinating stories, who had interesting perspectives, who we wanted to get back on. Some of them are new friends, like today. Jonathan Hall is joining us, I think, from Hollywood. Jonathan?
I'm technically in Studio City, but my church is called the First Christian Church of North Hollywood. Yeah, it's one of our more historic, famous churches. It's on a lot of movies and TV shows.
Which movies?
It was a church where Indiana Jones got married.
Wow.
Seventh Heaven, Young Sheldon, all that. So it's almost like worshiping on a movie set.
That's Hollywood.
But my predecessor came to our church during the Vietnam War, and stayed through that, and was trying to navigate the church through those waters.
And you're trying to navigate it now through new challenges.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us, Jonathan. What are we, 4 days into the second Trump term? What's your assessment 4 days in?
I have had a lot of folks in my own church who are really enthralled with their cable news outlet. I think it is very easy to go down into a deep rabbit hole of worrying about everything. But the folks who have reached out to me are very concerned about some of the changes that they anticipate coming our way. They're concerned about how President Trump will help California due to these fires. So just a lot of nervousness, I would say.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you're not going to tell us how you voted or intend to vote. That's fine. But let me ask you about something that was said in Washington's National Cathedral in the past day. The Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd gave a warning, I suppose, to Donald Trump. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon people in our country who are scared now. What did you make of that?
I agree with the message 100%. Also, even whether I disagree with someone or not, it's also how can I say what needs to be said and it be heard? She was having a one-on-one conversation with him, but doing it in front of everyone else. I just wonder how that conversation could have been heard by President Trump if she had done that with like a one-on-one conversation. There's something special about being a pastor and you know that what you're saying needs to be said, and it's usually it's hitting whenever the pews start creaking, because people start and like moving around, and that usually means like what you're saying is really hard. But I just wonder if he could have heard it in that very public way.
I guess the point is he would never. There would never have been an opportunity for her to say that privately, and so she used the pulpit to say it to him, and it just happened to be public.
So we need to be able to have that conversation, but I can only have those hard conversations with folks who know me and trust me and let me into their lives as a pastor. And so she did not have that relationship with him. So it's really hard to be able to speak directly to him in that sense. So it's just a very public way of making a point.
Why is religion so important in US politics, Jonathan?
Oh,
Big question.
I mean, I was born and raised in the Bible Belt, and I have seen the way that religion has been used to support politics, and I think that faith should inform politics. But more often than not, according to some recent studies, people now in the United States choose their church based on their politics as opposed to having their faith inform their political views. So it's difficult to try to lead a community whenever we have our politics be our biggest identity piece, and that's what's happening right now in our country. Is I feel like it is front and center. It's this is my team, this is my jersey. Whereas for me as a pastor, I believe that our faith should be our primary identity marker as a beloved child of God. And if that's the case, then we should be able to have difficult conversations together. So, like at my last church in Ruby Red, Colorado Springs, we had a difficult conversation around guns. And there was one woman who was morally opposed to guns by every fiber in her being because she lost two husbands to war. I can totally understand how she got there. And then a woman who sat across the table from her, she said, well, if I can't bring my gun to church, then I won't come to church here because I was assaulted a half a block from this church. So one could understand how she got there. And then it's two women who were having a beautiful conversation, and they could understand each other. They both independently called me the next day to talk greatly about the other person.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah, religion and politics, big questions on both, and the two combined. Jonathan, thank you. We're very grateful for your time. Many thanks, and look forward to speaking to you again.
Yeah, we'll speak to you soon, Jonathan, and good luck with the fire.
Look forward to it too.
So, where next?
Well, overnight, if you are listening to this on Thursday morning in the UK, Donald Trump gave his first big sit-down interview as president. Perhaps unsurprisingly, it was on Fox News with longtime Trump ally and Mar-a-Lago neighbor Sean Hannity.
Joe Biden ran and said he would never do preemptive pardons. It was an issue that came up when you were leaving in your first time.
He thought, he heard that I was going to do it. I didn't want to do it. I was given the option. They said, sir, would you like to pardon everybody, including yourself? I said, I'm not going to pardon anybody. We didn't do anything wrong. And we had people that suffered. They're incredible patriots. We had people that suffered. You had Bannon put in jail. You had Peter Navarro put in jail. You had people that suffered. And far worse than that, they've lost their fortunes. They've lost their whatever, their nest egg, paying it to lawyers. And those people, and people said, and they wouldn't have even taken, most of those people, they wouldn't have even taken a pardon. This guy went around giving everybody pardons. And you know, the funny thing, maybe the sad thing, is he didn't give himself a pardon. And if you look at it, it all had to do with him.
What do you make, Mark, of Trump and his interactions with the media? I mean, Fox News, perhaps more of an Indian head massage than an interview, but it's his choice on a regular basis.
Well, I had an interesting chat last night with one of our editors about a word I'd used in one of our live broadcasts yesterday, where I was reacting to Donald Trump's second impromptu news conference that he gave. The first was in the Oval Office the evening of the inauguration. The second was in, I think, the Roosevelt Room after an announcement on AI. And the word I used was transparent. And he was like, well, hang on a minute, he's not transparent. Half of what he said in that news conference was not true. And it is true to say that Donald Trump still very much requires fact checks. What I meant by the word transparent, maybe a better word is accessible, is that he is, over just 3 days, he has been far more accessible than Joe Biden probably ever was. I mean, Joe Biden did not give very many news conferences at all. Didn't do very many interviews. We just heard that there with Sean Hannity. Yes, he's talking to a close friend, someone who's not going to give him necessarily a very hard time. But he also does these free-for-alls, 2 of them already, where the gathered media come in, and he enjoys it. He's facing questions. There's no aide there saying, okay, we'll take a question from Fox here. Okay, we'll take a question from News Nation. No, it's anyone can throw a question. And in that sense, to answer your question, I think he has been, in just a few days, much more accessible. Maybe transparent was the wrong word. Our editors are always right, aren't they? Transparent was the wrong word. Right. Accessible, yes.
On the subject of Biden, if I tell you this story as if it's the first time I've told it to you, will you react to it like it's the first time you've heard it?
Go on.
Well, when Starmer came out to meet Biden, there was a press facility, big long table, 2 delegations. We went in. I was the TV pool. There was a silence. It was the day that Vladimir Putin had warned of Third World War if missiles were fired into Russia. So it's silent. Biden's 10 yards from me. And I said, how do you react to what Vladimir Putin has had to say? And he said to me, you be quiet. And I didn't actually quite hear him, so I asked the question again. He said, if you'd be quiet, I'm going to make a statement. And then he duly gave a statement to Starmer, a statement of welcome. And as soon as that had finished, I asked him a third time, and his answer was, well, I don't think about Vladimir Putin. But the American journalists in the room, they bristled at that, didn't like the fact that the choreography had been rather ripped up with a question.
I think you've hit on something there. The journalists, the American media, is much more aggressive with Trump than they ever were with Biden. I think if that exact same situation had happened and Starmer was one side of the table and Trump was the other side, and you'd asked that, you wouldn't have been the only one asking it. But for some reason, with Biden, people were much more deferential, and you were sort of vilified. How dare he do this? So that's interesting. Like people are giving Trump a harder time, but he's also enjoying it, isn't he?
Yeah. I think there's a time for asking the President of the United States a question, and that, I think, is every time.
Definitely.
You said earlier, Mark, it had been a quieter day, but...
A calmer day, maybe.
A calmer day? Okay, all right. Everything's relative. There have been a few things going on, haven't there?
Yeah, they have every day, of course. We rattle through a few things that you may have missed. 1,000 active service troops are due to be deployed to the southern border with Mexico by Donald Trump. This is as part of his immigration policy to secure the southern border. And controversial, of course, because active service military are not trained in things like crowd control, and crowd control could be an issue down on the southern border. So that's controversial. On Ukraine, we've had the first response. Maybe this is the first point at which we will see America's adversaries pushing at the boundaries, seeing where Trump is on things, because Russia's deputy envoy at the UN, has responded to Trump's economic threats against Moscow. Dmitry Polyansky, I think Martha had a go at him a while ago up in New York.
Naturally.
I think she had a great line. She said, with the deepest of respect, that's preposterous, which was great. Anyway, Dmitry Polyansky, the deputy envoy to Russia at the UN, he has said that the Kremlin would need to see what Trump thinks a deal comprises of before proceeding. So that's all about Ukraine. If Trump has a deal, Russia wants to see it, and then they'll decide whether it's a goer or not. We also know that Donald Trump's team has ordered federal government departments to dismantle their diversity programs, with all employees placed on paid leave. So they got an email today, or presumably last night, saying, don't come into the office tomorrow because your department no longer exists. You will still be paid until we've worked out what to do with you. So amazing stuff, really.
Yeah, amazing indeed. Yesterday we spoke about the letter left by Joe Biden for Donald Trump. It's been published by Fox News. Who else? Do you want to know what's in it?
Go on then. You said you didn't want it to be published.
I tell you what, I'll read this to you. And my take is that Biden absolutely knew this was going to be published. Listen to it and tell me what you think. Dear President Trump, as I take leave of this sacred office, I wish you and your family all the best in the next 4 years. The American people and people around the world look to this house for steadiness in the inevitable storms of history. And my prayer is that in the coming years, it will be a time of prosperity, peace, and grace for our nation. May God bless you and guide you as he has blessed and guided our beloved country since our founding. Joe Biden, 20th of January, 2020. 25. If that wasn't going to be published, if he thought it was going to be kept private, it would have been a far shorter message, I bet.
Yeah, screw you.
Yes, so. Oh, no.
I think, in all seriousness, of course he thought it was going to be published. I think all those letters are written in the knowledge that they may well get leaked or published. My reaction to that, I think that's Biden to a T. It is respectful because he loves his country and he wants Trump to be successful. I mean, every president wants their successor to be successful, even if they believe that it's very hard that they can be. And I think it's true to say that Biden has deep concerns about the direction the country will go in under Trump.
Okay, well, that's almost it for today. If you've liked what you've heard, please do click that follow button wherever you're listening. And remember, if you have a question about Donald Trump, US politics, or anything else, you can now email us on trump100@sky.uk. And you've been sending them in already, like Christopher in Fort Lauderdale, who's an expat and says he's enjoying the daily updates.
And Rob, who wrote, "Hi team, great podcast. Thanks for keeping it short and sweet. My question is, has Trump made his intention to drill, baby drill, clear? Does he simply deny climate change is real or acknowledge it exists, but does not really care as long as the USA flourishes economically? I'm genuinely confused about his beliefs." You and me both.
Right, yeah. I mean, the rest of the world is running around with its hair on fire at Trump's instantly pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord, perhaps the biggest policy change that Donald Trump has made.
And I think one answer to that question, Rob, is simply that he believes America comes first. And that sort of supersedes everything. Ultimately, number one is America. And if that means drill, baby, drill, then so be it.
Yeah, America comes first, and the success of a Trump presidency comes a close second. Okay, that really is it for now. We'll see you on day 5 of Trump 100.
Bye-bye.